his comments and very sensitive to his schedule. Mr. Thornton, would you like to welcome?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me say good morning, commissioners, elected officials, staff members, ladies and gentlemen of the public. I want to thank the chairman for having
on Virginia roads. It's just, it's unconscionable, and we need to really work hard on that. We're also focused on a lot of major projects across Virginia. You know, there's a bunch in Northern Virginia. Or I'm in Powhatan or Goochland, and yeah, I'm not always sure exactly where the line is frankly, nor do I care, right? I just want to be able to do what I need to do. And so this is really an opportunity for us if we can get on board with this. And I had a great meeting a couple weeks ago with some folks from CVTA. It's really a great opportunity to us to do some incredible stuff between these two huge important regions in Virginia and really to connect them. A fellow down in our neck of the woods in Hampton Roads, Tom Franz, has been sort of a leader of talking about the mega region for a number of years now. And I really see it coming to fruition. And so what does that really mean for us if that happens? It means global economic competitiveness. The port is on a huge roll. It is the #1 port for containers, was recognized just a couple of days ago for containers in the United States. We signed an agreement with the feds the other day to make it the deepest and widest port on the East Coast. Its volume is exploding. When we're down there at Port Day, all sorts of people from all over the world are saying, find me a place to build a site so I can bring my stuff into the port. And where does it go from the port? Well, it doesn't stay in Hampton Roads. It gets on a truck and it goes out 64 or 58, or it gets on a train, or it gets on a barge and comes to Richmond. That's where it goes. And along the way, we picked up AutoZone in New Kent County and Drone Up, and there's others coming. And that area between these two great regions is closing so that it's sort of one continuous place. And that's just really important to global competitiveness. We also have the military presence, both in the Richmond area and in the Hampton Roads area, which is critical to our regions, to both of our regions. It's the highest concentration of military that you can find pretty much anywhere. And it's really important. The travel time reliability on that corridor is a problem. It's getting better, but solving this gap problem will make it even better. And we're all about moving people and goods, right? That's what it's all about. You want to come there, or they want to come here. You got goods, you got people moving in and out. I just can't tell you what it's meant to Hampton Roads to have the investment that HR TAC has done along that corridor. It's changed the game. And I sort of liken it to the I-95 situation that we're working on hard with FredEx. We're trying to bend the curve there, but we're really going to make some progress on 64. So the whole job creation thing, the economic development thing, we've got 17 institutions of higher learning for HBCUs along this region along this corridor. This ability to fix this transportation issue just means so much to the future of the region. And when I talk about the region, I'm talking about from the ocean to Goochland and north to Ashland. It just is incredibly important. So the really good news is that 29-mile segment has gotten the attention of the legislature. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the budget bill because I'm not the governor, nor am I the legislature, but they've submitted their budget to the governor. And that bill has $320 million of money to help fund this gap. This is a $750 million program, we think pretty clearly, but as I told you, inflation is driving lots of things. It's a project that we can get started on this year. And by that, I mean, we can start the preliminary work. We've already done a lot of preliminary work, which allow us to go to a request for qualifications by the end of the year. So if it holds up the 320s in the budget from the General Assembly, that was a courageous thing by those folks. We don't, transportation is not funded through general funds. It's not. It's funded by specific revenue sources. And so for them to make this statement is incredibly important and tells you a lot. On top of that, there's 150 million of extra dollars if the state hits its revenue targets that would come to this project as well. So the assembly has stepped up and said, we're willing to give you 470 million of the 750, but you got to go find the rest, right? So we put that application into the feds for 150 million. It had incredible support. The congressional delegation, our senators, both senators, I had a great talk with Senator Warner down at the port last week. He was all about this when he was governor. And he reminded me that's a fair piece of time ago. And he's excited to see it occur. So we got incredible support from them, incredible support from the political elected officials up and down the corridor, incredible support from the legislature, the business community, the military, the port, on and on and on. We had hundreds of letters that went to the federal government and said, please help us do this. It has such a huge impact on our Commonwealth and our region. So 470 out of the state, we hope, 150 out of the feds. I've asked your colleagues at CVTA to look at $125 million. It's a lot of money, folks. I understand that, but it's a lot of bang for your buck. You'll never get an opportunity like this. If we don't get it done now, we're not going to see it. Okay, it's all going to go away. So I've also asked for the same amount from HR TAC. Understand they've already put billions of dollars into this corridor, right? And they're pretty down. They're way down the barrel at the bottom of money. And so they looked at me a little askance. I said, I know you better than that. You've got some money squirreled away, and we'll help you free some up somehow if we need to. But I'm just ecstatic that we're in this position where we have an opportunity to do something that's so fundamentally important for the Richmond region and for the Hampton Roads region and for the Commonwealth. So we're at a unique opportunity. And I would encourage all of y'all, it's interesting because the members of in Hampton Roads who are like up here of all these entities are the same people. We just put on different hats as we move from one group to the other, mostly. And so whoever you are and whatever these organizations you're part of, whether it's CVTA or PlanRVA or Rrtpo, we need to get together, join hands and make this thing happen. So again, a unique opportunity, a 29-mile stretch. It'll be a lifetime project for the region, bringing jobs, bringing economic opportunity, serving the underserved in those rural areas that exist between Norfolk and the Hampton Roads region and Richmond and the Richmond region. Serves the military, serves the port. We just really need your help. So if we get that help, and as we tell the feds that, it's very important for them. If they can top this thing off and declare victory and move on, it will happen. Okay. If we're stalled in the funding process and we don't know how we're going to pay for it, it gets really dicey. So what I'm looking for is for us to join hands and get a commitment out of this region to make this thing happen. And you'll get a $750 million project for a little north of 100 million of contribution. And that's pretty darn good leverage, Mr. Chairman. So I'm making my plea and telling you why. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have, but it's the most important project I see that is sort of a statewide and regional consequence at the same time for this group and for Hampton Roads. And it's a unique opportunity that will not present itself again. So we need to, as my good friend says, we need to take the tarts when the tarts are being passed, and the tarts are being passed. So with that, I want to thank you for having me today. I've got a couple minutes and then I got to get in the car and battle my way up 95. Just thank goodness there's no snow today. It's a beautiful sunny day and I'm looking forward to seeing some colleagues and friends in Northern Virginia. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and make a few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Any questions for the Secretary before he has to launch on 95? And by the way, we'll put you on the prayer list for your journey.
Use all the prayers I can get.
That's amen.
Anybody have any questions?
questions? Ms. Page? Ms. Page represents Newcomb County.
Good morning, I'm Secretary Miller. I am Tricia Page, Board of Supervisors, Newcomb County, and on behalf of Newcomb County and all of our great citizens, we are the gap. And so this morning, I thank you, sir, for your plea, and I thank you for being here.
Ms. Page, you're the opportunity connector.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? Who's going to win the World Series this year? I mean, I'll take any question. I have no idea. Well, listen, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to hop, but I must do so. And I very much appreciate it. I'd love to come back and chat formally or informally at your urging, at your invitation. I try not to show up when I'm not invited, but sometimes I do. But I do appreciate the opportunity and you and your colleagues have given me. So thank you so much.
Mr. Secretary, you're always welcome. And again, we appreciate you coming and sharing your comments this morning. It wasn't that long ago where we had conversations down here about the Golden Crescent, which feeds right into the Secretary's comments about the importance of this gap and how it works, not just the Hampton Roads region, not just for Central Virginia, but for Northern Virginia as well. So you're seeing something pretty important unfolding here today. And it's exciting to watch because it's now the opportunities before us to accomplish something that we've been talking about for it seems like years. Now, we seem to be on the cusp of being able to actually accomplish this. So again, I'm excited about that. At this point, I would like to turn the microphone over to Mr. Chris Winslow, who is now going to take you through all the exciting things that have been going on the last 2 years with PlanRVA. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm ready for those tarts. I don't know if they're being passed or not. But, we do have donuts this morning. It's been a pleasure to serve as chair of PlanRVA this year. There has been a lot of movement and progress, I think, within the organization, and I'm delighted to share some of those highlights with you. And I see lots of our regional partners here this morning, and I just want to say thank you again for being here. Of course, coming through the pandemic, we have learned to use technology. We're still working on it, I think, in some capacities, but we are making progress. And I think that we have seen this year gains in that area, Mr. Chairman, and I think some of that's at your urging and help along the way. And so, you know, PlanRVA hosts more than 100 meetings a year. I don't know how many folks don't realize that. So our team has done a good job with that. I want to recognize Tim Davey and Neil Spoonhour, my seatmate here, Mr. Frank Thornton, our CVTA chairman, Jacob Giovia, and Charlie Waddell. They have all been working very hard on our community engagement plan. And that has been a big deal for us because back in 2018, when we were all working together, Mr. Thornton and others, we came up with some help with this logo. And I think this logo has helped us brand ourselves. And then this community engagement plan is sort of the next step in that. And so I want to publicly thank all of those folks for that work. It's essentially important for us to be able to provide what is happening across the 3 regional bodies and across our localities. So we're working hard on a joint engagement plan, and I think that will be helpful to all of us as the organization moves forward. I want to thank Mr. Jim Holland, my colleague on the Board of Supervisors in Chesterfield, who is the chair of our commission's Audit, Facilities, and Finance Committee. They, of course, have been very busy this year, in particular because PlanRVA will be relocating to a new space down in Manchester. And so that's an exciting time. So I also want to thank Andreas Addison, Mike Byerly, Pat O'Bannon, and Canova Peterson for your efforts on that committee as well, because there's a lot of detail work that goes into moving, as we all know, and you all have been really good about sorting all of these things out. and getting the contracts in place. That will be at 424 Hull Street, and I think we look forward to a move this winter. Programmatically, we've done a lot this year. So we haven't had an update on the region's long-range transportation plan since 2004. That was completed this year. We have a hazard mitigation plan update in place in partnership with Crater PDC to the south of us. And of course, those documents provide the forum for local government cooperation to convey state and federal partners and the region's, I think, most pressing priorities as we move forward. We also, I think as an organization, I think it's fair to say, PlanRVA stepped into a new space this year as it relates to the topic of affordable housing. In September, we named the Partnership for Housing Affordability as our implementation partner to make $2.7 million to area nonprofit affordable housing developers to support projects that would grow new housing opportunities. Cut to the chase, this is going to result in 272 units of affordable rental and owner-occupied housing by the end of the 3-year period. And I want to thank our friends at the partnership, Joanne Burton and Shelby Carney, for making that program such a success. It's really remarkable what you're able to do with that money and that type of investment. Speaking of successes, we have another exciting milestone this last year, that was the partnership with the Lower Chickahominy Watershed Collaborative, which includes our friends in Charles City, James City, and New Kent, as well as the federally and state designated tribal organizations in our region, the Lower Chickahominy Eastern Division, the Lower Chickahominy, and the Pamunkey. So this is the first of its kind in Virginia and maybe the country. In fact, the collaborative is working to promote communication and collaboration across jurisdictional and tribal structures with the end goal of preserving the unique ecology of the Lower Chickahominy watershed while providing for opportunities for economic development. So this is just a really good testament to building relationships again and what we can do with planning when we reach outside of our bubble. So I do want to take a moment and recognize this environmental work. Sarah Stewart, I think I saw her earlier. I want to say really good job to you, along with Rebecca Cazares, Katie Moody, and Heather Barrar as well, because they are also focused on building the necessary partnerships to promote environmental sustainability and resiliency across the region. With that in mind, I also saw our friends at FOLAR this morning, and I do want to recognize Wendy Austin for the work that they're doing to preserve the Appomattox River and enhance opportunities for all citizens, both present and future, in this area. It's really remarkable work, and they're doing very well. And I know we did a good job putting Ms. Barrar on loan to FOLAR a number of years ago, and I hope she's as pleased as we are with the results. So fulfilling the environmental and transportation and housing needs, all good, but we always can't forget, but they're always behind the scenes, the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. These are the folks who are working, and as a former Navy intelligence guy, I have a real appreciation for these folks, because they're always working every day behind the scenes to make sure that if and when something happens, like for instance, this tragic situation with the two young ladies on the James River this weekend, that we're ready to respond as a region, that we are working together. And I saw proof of that. I'm sure, hopefully none of you are on Twitter, but there actually is some good things on Twitter occasionally. But there was some good video of our Goochland and Richmond and Chesterfield and Henrico fire departments on the river searching for these young ladies. And so very sad situation, but it's good to see all of us working together when something does happen. And so that's why they're there. They're doing a great job. And I would be remiss if I didn't, give them kudos. And of course, the threat list goes on. So we're very grateful for them. The other thing is we obviously have worked together hard on pandemic response. And I think the Alliance itself worked with the Community Foundation, United Way, and others to distribute $7 million to local area nonprofits, local governments, and partners for pandemic response items. And so, that was the epitome of what, why they exist, and their response efforts were laudatory. I want to say thank you to Sherry Armstrong with the Community Foundation. I want to say thank you to Brian Anderson. I see you in the back, sir, with PlanRVA. We're grateful for your leadership and commitment to this community. And I would say that in just a few years, you have worked to familiarize yourself with the region and diverse set of needs and opportunities. PlanRVA has been a longtime partner, but we look forward to strengthening our coordination, particularly as we move into a new area of regional cooperation. On that note, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to continuing to be involved in this organization as it moves forward. My time as chairman of PlanRVA is about to come to an end. And I do want to say thank you and particularly recognize Martha for her leadership. I think, at least for me this year, I think she's been excellent to work with. I think the quality of the work of the organization speaks for itself. And there's been a lot of key items move forward this year again, and also in some new spaces that we recognize. And I want to thank all of our members for attending our meetings. And, because we have some early meetings and we've had a couple of contentious votes, but I'd like to think that we're on a good footing as an organization moving forward. And we've set ourselves up nicely to attract talent and to be a place of real collaboration over the next decade by virtue of some of the decisions that have been made this year. With that, also, last but not least, want to recognize Lee Medford, who will celebrate 24 years with PlanRVA this July, and Jen Lee, who will celebrate 34 years this June. Please join me, Mr. Chairman, in celebrating their outstanding tenure.
Thank you, Mr. Winslow. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Thornton. Mr. Thornton heads up the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, and he's been the only chairman to date. So I guess he's moving into the status of emeritus, maybe. Anyway, Mr. Thornton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning again. I have had the distinct honor of serving as the inaugural chair of the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, or as we call it, the CVTA. The CVTA provides new funding opportunities for priority transportation investments across the region. The authority was established in 2020 by the General Assembly of Virginia and comprises the counties and cities located in Planning District 15, also known as PlanRVA. The funding model that's used at present is 35% is to be retained by the authority, 15% is distributed to Greater Richmond Transit Company or GRTC, and 15% shall be returned proportionally to each locality. The creation of the CBTA allows the 9 jurisdiction members of PlanRVA to plot their own course and to have many more ownership, or to have, let's say, much more ownership and transportation investments in Central Virginia. The presence of this authority will provide a resource for member governments and agencies that previously did not exist. Thus, CBTA is a new partner that can leverage resources for competitive funding opportunities and will help Central Virginia compete on a larger scale. Much like the future forward planning work that occurs through PlanRVA, the CBTA will allow the region to look to the future, knowing that there is a stable foundation of financial resources to support investments in the region. I'm also proud to have the opportunity to kind of tell you what the CBA is all about. Some people have been reading about it and all of that. Today you get the real story. We have also assembled a quick video to provide an overview of the CVTA and what it means for the region. Can we have that video, please? Very helpful to many of you. I'd like to invite members of this CVTA Technical Advisory Committee to the front to share a little bit more information on the foundational work that has been accomplished since the CVTA held its first organizational meeting in August of 2020. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Barbara Smith to come up and share a few words about the regional project prioritization. Ms. Smith.
Good morning. How is everyone? I want to give you a little update on CVTA regional funding. So requirements of the CVTA as defined in the Code of Virginia include that the authority establish a prioritization process that's based on an objective and quantifiable analysis of project benefits relative to their cost. So only projects that go through that process are eligible for CVTA regional funding. The Technical Advisory Committee developed a framework document, the Project Selection and Allocation Framework, that set out guidelines for the evaluation of projects for inclusion in the CVTA's regional funding plan. The framework document established criteria to help narrow an exceedingly long list of projects so that decision makers had a more reasonable list to manage. Some of the components of the framework include project applications, screening, scoring and ranking, and project selection. The framework also includes guidance on how to allocate funds with consideration given to project phasing, cash flow, and whether CVTA funds can be leveraged against other sources such as local, state, or federal funds. So now that we've completed the first full cycle of CVTA regional funding, the Technical Advisory Committee is looking forward to refining that process, and we already have some ideas to make it better for the next cycle. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Todd Ewell to tell us about something you saw in that video called the Fall Line Trail. It's yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as mentioned in the video, much of the first 2 years of regional funding from CBTA was dedicated to the Fall Line Trail, $104.5 million. So that's not only helped jumpstart the trail, but it also has helped us leverage other funding. So depending on what comes out of the state budget, there is some money in there for regional trails, some of which hopefully will go to the Fall Line. We're probably a little bit over halfway funded for the full 43 miles, which is huge progress. I mean, trails are not cheap, so we're learning every day that inflation affects trails as well as roads. The pledge also helps us move forward on fueling 2 design build sections. One will be from picking up where Ashland has built to the southern end of the town limits down across the Chickahominy River to Henrico. Then the second section is on the southern piece coming up out of Petersburg towards into Chesterfield. So those sections are led by VDOT in a design build contract process that hopefully the first one will be out for advertisement later this year, early next year. And then separately, localities are working on different sections of the trail as well. We're also partnering with VDOT through the CVTA TAC and the Fall Line Working Group to work on some design guidelines so we have consistency in the look and feel of the trail throughout the full 43 miles, including wayfinding signage, trail markers, so that we have very nice signage and amenities along the trail as sections get completed. So thank you.
An organization like the CVTA also must have a person to run it and to run it properly. So I want to ask Mr. Neil Spoonhour, Miss Virginia, Ms. Patricia Page, to come up and tell us how this about the executive director recruitment is coming along.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Neil Spoonhour from Goochland County. This is Ms. Page from New Kent. We are very honored to be part of this work group that is starting this very important work. I've done a lot of interviewing with my time at Capital One, staffed dozens of call centers. And it reminds me of an interview I had once where I asked the candidate, I said, what drives you to work every day? And he looked at me seriously and said, the bus. I said, no. I said, what motivates you to get out of bed every morning? He's like, not missing the bus. Seriously, though, we are very honored. We kicked this work off with an amazing work group in January or earlier this year that consisted of the HR directors from around the region known as the HR Roundtable. We tasked them with learning what we really needed in our new executive director, and they put together an amazing marketing material that got us candidates all over the country. We poured through all the applications and resumes, 100%, and ranked them by tiers. We recently had our first round of interviews with all of our top tier candidates, and we are very excited that in 2 weeks from today, we will be interviewing the finalists for that with hopes of bringing us presenting to the committee next new executive director. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that through the interview process, all of the external candidates, when it became their time to ask where we were as an organization, and share with them where we've gotten to today, all of them without hesitation said, "Wow, y'all are a lot further along than I thought you were." And I think I want to recognize Mr. Parsons and his team for his leadership, for stepping into that role, and we are excited.
Yes, we are.
So thank you.
Okay, let's talk a little about flowers now. So the Technical Advisory Committee has provided a steady, solid technical foundation for all the hard work that the CBTA has undertaken these first 2 years. The work of this committee has enabled the CBTA to establish a data-driven regional project selection process, commit to support of the fall line, consider a second round of regional funding for the 30 projects. Also, we want to make sure that we let people know who some of these people are. So I would like to acknowledge them, some of these people who have been part of this. And so I would like to acknowledge Yvette George, if they're here with a stand up, please. Murray Selby, Janet Lawson, Mona Atkins Easley, Wanda Cornwell for their hard work for the past 2 years. And it's very important that we recognize people. So I say to them, metaphorical flowers. Portion of that group that I just mentioned also had to do with the round table that you heard that Mr. Spoonhour mentioned. And so there are so many groups, such as the finance directors. Our role as members of the CVTA is to provide resources that help implement transportation improvements across the region. We would have not been able to commit $102 million to regional projects, $43.5 million to regional transit, and $145 million to local transportation priorities without the support of our local finance directors. I'd like to recognize the following people: Abby Pemberton, Debbie Basie, Matt Harris, Barbara Holasher, John Cincerella, Terrell Hughes, Matt Renal, Rebecca Guthrie, Carla Schubert, Ned Smither, Sheila White, and Joy Dean. If they're here, would you please stand? Thank you. Thank you. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that CBTA is still very young. We're learning, and every great organization hits a bump from time to time. That helps to grow. But we have a brand new tool, and I'd like to conclude with that we also have the 3 C's. What are these 3 C's? Congeniality, collaboration, and competition. Let me give you a few examples. By the mere fact that we have 9 localities coming together, that is congeniality. And what about collaboration? Well, you saw a lot of that today. I also want to throw flowers out to the vice chair. The vice chair and I did a podcast together talking about the value of CVTA. And last but not least, the 3rd C, competition. We want people to come to this district because we are competitive. That's how things will be in the future. So we must continue to buttress these concepts, and we must make the CVTA or Region 15 the best region where people say, I have a choice, and I'm going to that region. Thank you for your participation, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing us to have this chance to talk about these great organizations. And I end with this, collaboration is right up here as you see today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. If you've been to any of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organizations, you probably heard me refer to Mr. Thornton as the Godfather. I say that affectionately because going back to when I started coming down to the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, it goes back to '04. That gentleman was pounding the table. He said, we've got to do a better job of explaining to our constituents, to the community, what we do as an organization. And that went on for years. And sadly, we didn't listen. But yet this year, finally, we came together and we said, we got to change the dialogue. It was Mr. Addison, I believe, in one of our meetings, I think it was the August meeting, where he said, we need to control the messaging to get out and celebrate what we're doing as an organization that's now working with two other organizations, particularly the newly created CVTA. And so that got the wheels turning. And now you see the fruits of that today, where you've got three organizations that are working together. And briefly, if I may give a little bit of history here. Several years ago, I remember in the December meeting of the TPO, our Commonwealth Transportation Board member, Mr. Carlos Brown, came to that meeting. He said, there's going to be a transportation authority created this upcoming General Assembly. It was, and as you've heard, Doris McGuinn patroned that bill and shepherded through the General Assembly with support from Senator McClellan. And at that time, there was a great deal of skepticism about how this thing would work, particularly if you can imagine the rural jurisdictions about they're concerned about all the money would be going for transportation projects of a regional nature, for example, I-64, I-95, etc. But the way this has turned out, we not only get to participate in the revenue sharing of the dollars that are being collected to leverage, projects in our own locality, as well as in the region. That's been a game changer because we're able to address not only projects in our long-term transportation plans locally, but as well as the region. And so with that balance, we've been able to accomplish things that we would never be able to have accomplished before. And I can witness that and bear witness firsthand as a rural jurisdiction. Because it's all about leveraging. When Mr. Brown came to us and informed us about the new legislation, he explained that we were losing out to Northern Virginia and to Hampton Roads with projects, with the Commonwealth Transportation Board with Smart Scale, because they were able to use monies that they were collecting from their authorities to leverage projects. So now we find ourselves in a situation where we can compete and we can fund things that we wouldn't have been able to fund for years. And you're seeing it happen this morning with the Secretary's announcement about how we're able to cobble together different pots of money to bring about something that's been talked about in the region and the state for years. And that is the completion of the widening of 64, which is invaluable to the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's part of the Golden Crescent. It's a key economic driver, and it provides other benefits that are incalculable. So I wanted to make that point known before we went any further, because Mr. Thornton does deserve a lot of credit for bringing us to the point where we are today. And I just wanted to thank him publicly for his service. you some background information on the Rrtpo, and I'm just going to hit some bullet points. To share with you, it is a federally funded and mandated program. We are created through a memorandum of understanding with PlanRVA, where we had signed a memorandum of understanding back on December 31st, 1884. And Frank's asked me to bring forward, the denial that we were there for the signing. But the whole effort here is to ensure regional cooperation, regional planning through the 9 jurisdictions that make up our region. And you see that happening today. We're fully integrated with PlanRVA. And now, as you see, as the secretary talked about this morning, most of us wear hats or have worn hats in the other organizations. So we're no stranger to the other organizations. As the secretary said, we move in and out of those seamlessly. So you see us now working where we've always worked as part of PlanRVA. Now we're working with CVTA, and CVTA is working with the TPO and the Long Range Transportation Plan. If CVTA wants to be able to fund something, then we're putting it in the Long Range Transportation Plan for the region. So you're seeing that cooperation, and it's working very well. So I wanted to share that with you. We're going to invite members of our technical advisory committee to come forward, just like we've done with PlanRVA and CBTA this morning. And at this point, I would like to call up Mr. Vituas. Now, I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. But anyway, he's going to talk to you about Connect RVA, the 2045 plan. Welcome, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Not too bad on the name. Joe Vidunas with Hanover County, and I am a member of the TAC and pleased to be here. And so I've been asked to give a couple remarks about the development of the Long Range Transportation Plan known as Connect 2045 RVA, or Connect RVA 2045. Got it. Okay, but you guys got it. So the long range plan is a really important program that the TPO performs. Every 5 years, that plan is updated. And there was a recognition among all of us that, community input into that process is extremely important, that we needed to do more than we had done in the past to that end. And so one of the things that we did as a body is we engaged a professional consultant through one of our on-call contracts, engaged them to help us develop strategies, outreach strategies, and tools, online tools, for example, that we could use to educate the public about what the plan is and what is important is for the region and how they could be part of the development of that plan. So one of the things that we came up with was a video, an introductory video that kind of explained all those things. And you'll see that in a few minutes. And we think that was pretty successful. I don't know how accurate the count tallies are on YouTube, but I noticed it had 130 views when I looked at it yesterday. So that's impressive. But to that end, we also think that more can be done and should be done in the future. So just in kind of closing, like I said, when you compare what has been done in the past, and particularly given that this plan was developed during the pandemic, and we look at the participation rates that we had from the public, it's very impressive. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to conclude and we can see the video.
Good morning, Nora Amos with the Town of Ashland. I have the honor of serving on the Technical Advisory Committee as well as a multitude of other advisory committees and subcommittees with some of the staff members who have spoken today. I think we all understand that active transportation has been a hot topic in the region for the past several years. And during the development of the ConnectRVA 2045 plan, it became pretty obvious that we needed to update our 2004 bicycle and pedestrian regional study. And so the active transportation community in our region is very engaged in the work of the Rrtpo, and we're very enthusiastic about participating in this process to update the plan. The plan is very comprehensive and captures the needs, concepts, and solutions from across the entire spectrum of thought regarding active transportation. It includes identification of existing networks, gaps in those networks, and proposes new connections that should be made. It looks at safety improvements, policy ideas, and programs to increase equity, accessibility through the entire regional system. We look forward to being able to update the plan frequently as the network continues to be constructed and more people get engaged in the effort.
I am going to stand in for Ms. Loretta Moore Clark from the city of Richmond. She is actually presenting at the Virginia Transit Association conference today, so go Central Virginia. My name is Chad Parsons. I'm Director of Transportation at PlanRVA, but wanted to give a brief update on our regional transportation safety plan. This is a first-time effort that we've undertaken at the TPO. I think, as we all know, the city of Richmond has been a leader across the state in the Vision Zero movement and moving towards zero deaths related to and serious accidents related to transportation networks. And one of the things that we've done at the TPO is serve as a forum. So many of our member jurisdictions were interested in learning more information about the program that the city was undertaking. And while not everyone is at the same place in regards to Vision Zero, we did get great consensus to develop our first regional transportation safety plan. So this is a huge effort that provides a lot of great information for all of our member jurisdictions on where the hotspots are, where the incidents are happening, possible causes, possible solutions. We can analyze the trends over many different years to provide great information and online mapping that is basically real time once the state provides the crash information. So we're excited about seeing where this plan evolves. As I said, this is the first time we've done it. So I really encourage anyone who is interested in data, which I think we all are, to take a look and please contact staff or your member jurisdiction staff if you have any other questions. We're excited about continuing this effort.
Thank you, Chad. I said this in a recent Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization meeting. All the work gets done in the Technical Advisory Committee. Make no mistake about it. At this point, at this time, I'd like for any of the members of the Technical Advisory Committee for the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization to please stand and be recognized. These are the folks that come together to figure out how we're going to do the projects. And they're the ones that have to take, the federal regional transportation service block funding monies and the congestion mitigation, air qualities money, and figure out how we're going to fund projects in the region. And they do an outstanding job. So once again, thank you for what you do. We couldn't do what we do without you. I want to briefly mention Senior Connections. These are the folks that make the connections between transportation dependent communities and transportation providers. We've had a long-standing relationship with Senior Connections. In 2018, they were designated as the Human Services Transportation Coordination entity for our region. It's been committed for their Key partners including GRTC, Partnerships for Housing Affordability, PRPT, AARP, VCU, and mobility service agencies from our 9 jurisdictions. So we would like to recognize Senior Connections. Also, is Tony Williams in attendance this morning? Excuse me. Is Colleen Wilhelm? Is she here this morning? Thank you for what you do. And if there's any other members, please stand this morning. I'm sorry. Also in attendance this morning, we have the county administrators. I know Mayor Stoney was here earlier. Would they please stand? Jeff's going to talk to you about federal certification, why it's important. Jeff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to quickly celebrate the collaborative efforts of everyone in the region. Every 4 years, the Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administrations review metropolitan planning organizations across the country to make sure that the funds that are being committed to the work in the region are doing what it's supposed to do. The organization is operating as it's designated in the Federal Register, and that we're doing the work we have to do. There are many different requirements that we chase and adhere to on a regular basis. And I think it's worth noting today that our most recent certification review was in August of 2021. We got the results of the review in March of this year, and we've had a tremendous improvement in all of the work that we're doing as a region. We received a total of 8 commendations on exemplary techniques that our federal partners at Highways and Transit recognized. And I think that the work that we are doing moving forward is very exciting. And I think that everyone in the room should be proud of the work that each member jurisdiction is putting into the MPO to make it as successful as it is today, and seeing where we can be in the future. So thank you all.
Thank you, Chet, and thank you, Martha. You know, that was the reason I had you, do the certification and review and why it's important, because we have been recognized for our achievements by the federal government for things we've done in this region. So that's special. Thank you, and Martha and the staff for making it possible. All right, we're on the agenda now for, I think, special recognition. Is that something? Oh, okay, where do you want? Okay, plan for the future. Please, Martha.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you. Well, I just wanted to take a moment to have our members of staff who are here today, if you wouldn't mind just standing, so we can recognize. We've got not everyone here, but we do have quite a few folks, and some are out in the hall helping out. And I just wanted to recognize each of you. You all are a small but mighty team, and we really are appreciative of the work that you all do for the region every day. Thank you. Taking notes during our speakers, and really just kind of moved, because there's some themes that go through the conversations today, and it's hopefully apparent to everybody in the room and those that are listening. But our newest organization in the CVTA really is a piece of a bigger story, and regional planning is just so important. The work that our localities need to do together, whether it be in transportation, emergency management, thinking about the environment, all of that happens on a daily basis. And by no means is PlanRVA at the center of all of that, but we do like to think that we provide a really nice forum for you as leaders to come together, sit around the same table, talk about issues that you face together, whether you be a small jurisdiction, a large jurisdiction, urban, rural. There are core things that happen in local government that spread across the entirety of our region. And it's just really exciting when I see particularly when the meetings wrap up a little early. I see you all cluster in corners and you're talking, and you're sitting next to one another. And over the last 7 years, it's been really exciting to see even the seating arrangements in the boardroom change. No longer do we have each locality kind of sitting in their own little block. And it's really kind of exciting, especially after coming back from the pandemic, to see you all genuinely excited to see one another on a weekly basis and to catch up and, you know, talk about what you're watching. And I hear conversations about how you're seeing what's happening in different localities. Oh, we're dealing with that too. And it's just really a wonderful thing. Those are the intangibles, right, that happen at the regional planning table. And I think what you've heard today is a little bit of our goal to be able to sell this notion that regional planning is happening every day in the Richmond region. Cooperation is happening every day among our administrators, among our department heads, among our local elected officials, and that's happening on a daily basis. And I don't think that that's a story that's well enough told here in the Richmond region. The other theme I think that you probably have heard a little bit about today is data. It's at the core of the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission, PlanRVA. Our team, those that stood up, they think about and live and breathe data every day. And so one of the things that we want to do as we think about how our organization can move things forward in the region is what data can we put in front of you so that you can be data informed. So we've been talking a lot with Brian Anderson at the Chamber and our partners in the community about how we can really kind of think about where our region has come, where we're headed, and what we need to do to make sure that we're on the trajectory that we want to see for the region and not one that happens to us. So I'm really pleased to announce 2 partnerships. We're going to be launching some new content online with the Richmond Memorial Health Foundation around housing market information. So if you do live in the city of Richmond, the county of Henrico or Chesterfield, we've been able to access some data that was purchased and some analysis about what's happening in housing market and neighborhood conditions. And my hope is that by the next time we do that data update, we'll be able to include the whole of the 9 communities in the Richmond region. So more to come on that. The other big announcement I have is that we are working with what used to be Smart Beginnings Greater Richmond. They're now called, Brian, help me, Thrive by 5. Thank you. I'm still getting used to the new name, Thrive by 5, to be able to track data about our community. And that's actually going to be in partnership with the Greater Planning District Commission, because that new footprint for the Ready region area covers not only the PlanRVA region, but also down into the southern area. And so we'll be looking at early indicators of childhood and school readiness and what that means to our local economy. I'm going to let Chet talk about scenario planning and some of the new initiatives that we're doing on that. And that's really going to be a big focus for the PlanRVA Commission this coming fiscal year, the Rrtpo, and probably the CVTA as well.
We're not going to sing a duet. So I wanted to talk a little bit about scenario planning. One of the things that we're very excited about at the staff level is, I'd like to go back to Secretary Miller's remarks. A lot of the same priorities that he mentioned that the state is focused on, making good data-driven decisions, cost-benefit analysis, all of those things that put the tools in your hands to make the decisions that need to be made. We want to take that a step further. We've incorporated all of those things in our current process. Developing our long-range plan, it's all data-driven. Coming up with CBTA priorities, it's all data-driven. We have all of that data at our fingertips on the transportation side. But now we have an RFP on the street right now to elicit support from the private sector to help us develop a scenario planning process that not only looks at transportation, it looks at other future driving factors like environmental factors, like housing needs, like development density, all of the things that drive where people live and where they work. We want to incorporate in a data-driven tool that helps provide support for you all, the elected officials in the region, to make the best decisions possible. So we're excited about over the next 18 months or so, we're going to be developing that tool set, and we'll certainly be reaching out to everybody in the 9 jurisdictions to be a part of it, to help come up with those priorities, to draft the narratives. What's the future going to look like, and how should we best prepare for it? So more to come on that.
So we wanted to structure this part of the agenda. You've been sitting for a long time. You've been listening for a long time. So we wanted to run through these, what we think are the kind of the three big opportunities for PlanRVA to support Richmond region. And certainly we think that they are applicable to the TPO and CVTA. But I'll just take a pause for a moment and wanted to create a little bit of interaction. So if you have any thoughts on, from a data informed perspective, where do we really need to be focusing our energies? What are those new emerging topics that our organization needs to be focusing on and tracking? Obviously, you've heard about a couple of things that we know we're working on with housing and transportation, the built environment. But we wanted to be able to just open it up a little bit to do some brainstorming.
I've got a mic, I'll travel. I guess a few things to just prime the pump. The things that I'm going to be talking about in just a few minutes in our proposed work plan for the TPO. We want to look at network safety. Obviously, we have a regional transportation safety plan. We want to look at the big projects like the fall line, like I-64, like other kinds of things. We want to look at rail service. There's lots of opportunity on the table right now to improve access to DC and down to North Carolina with a lot of the actions that the state has moved on over the last year, 2 years. Some of those things. Anybody else? What are you excited about? I hope you have.
We think about and we talk about big things, but on a personal basis, being a rural locality, microtransit is huge, and we have a lot of citizens that struggle to get to doctor's appointments, to get to the services that they actually need. So looking at more creative solutions that I'm not going to bring, a 55-person bus up to Western Goochland, but I could bring a van or something like that. So how do we get the data to support programs like that to get people to the programs that they need, to the people that need it the most?
Anybody else?
Good morning. My name is Bill Lawson with the Office of Emergency Management in the City of Richmond. I'm also the Vice Chair for the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia here. I heard networking brought up as something. That's something we believe in emergency management. We do a lot of that. How do we get these things to work together? Hey, I know a guy. We always joke we're the emergency management mafia. You need something? We know a guy. So that's something that we like to try to bring to the table too. So we love to make sure that we can get included in some of the meetings and things, because there's a lot that can be brought to the table from that regional perspective, from emergencies, from that disaster piece, and we love to make sure we can be included in that. Thank you.
Chat. I just want to mention one thing that in Chesterfield we've looked at in terms of data is the state has a lot of data. The state collects a lot of data. And just in one area with the VEC, I know we've developed a memorandum of understanding to get some data from them to help make better decisions with regard to local service delivery and those models. I think that it would be a great thing for us to come together and help the state realize it's in everyone's interest to share data and not silo it, whether it be at the BEC or other departments. I think there's a lot of data that if we're unlocked could help us do our jobs better, both locally and regionally.
Thank you, Chad. Mr. Spenhauer mentioned the microtransit. This is something I think is very important, and I want to share that Hanover County did get involved with our Hanover Dash with this particular process. And if Jennifer Brule is still online, I want to thank her because she was a big part of helping us get that started. But we're willing to share. It's been continuous growth since we got there. We just celebrated, I think, our 300th rider has been signed up to that program. And we would be more than happy to share our things that we've done with that, with any of the other jurisdictions.
Well, thank you all. We really appreciate that. Mr. Williams, you mentioned a moment ago, and I just can't help but restate the innovation that happens in this region. We know we have a ways to go. We know we have areas that we want to improve, and we have opportunity to do that. But I think seldom, at least in our organization, do we take a moment to really be able to celebrate the successes. And I do just want to step back and say, you know, some of the folks that were planning to be here today can't be here because they're off presenting at conferences. They're sharing what's happening here in the community out, and other people are studying the Richmond region. Chet and Sulab were just at a national conference last week presenting on the work that we do around performance measures and what we're going to be doing with scenario planning. So I want to make mention of that, and to say that yes, we do go study other cities, we do go study other communities and swipe as many best practices as we can find. But more and more people are looking to this region to be able to see what we're doing here and how we're solving the problems and swiping those ideas from us. So we wanted to, again, germinate the field a little bit here to talk about what are those things that we want to do? What's that next innovative push that PlanRVA could be a part of to be able to help support, whether it be an initiative that the TPO will take on, a project that we want to fund with the CVTA, you know, anything with those organizations to really be able to continue to move the region forward as a leader across communities. Chet's got a couple of ideas, but we also wanted to hear from you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a couple ideas that we've been talking about. We have a great partnership with GRTC. We're looking forward in this coming year to working with them on continuing efforts to increase frequency of the current system so that people can catch a bus and make it more reliably to the destination that they need to make it to on time. We want to continue the evolution of looking at additional BRT routes to complement the Pulse. I think the next one up that's going to be studied is a north-south component that has connections across the system. We want to continue doing what we can to support fare-free transit if that's an opportunity. We think that from what we've heard, the success has been outstanding, and I think that the network has shown that. Other things we want to take a closer look on. You heard the secretary this morning. Freight logistics are a huge growth area for this region. If we're able to get our network in place and provide the capacity to support all the needs that are coming from outside the region to the region, that's a great growth area and a great regional practice to be looking at. Others?
We all joke about I-95. Town of Ashland benefits from the congestion on I-95. Concern is are we using technology to its best extent? We had a program a couple of years ago about platooning of trucks on 95 to make it more efficient. I think there are other ways, obviously with rail and bus, that we can improve the efficiency of our network through technology. In the town, we hope we're looking at ways to direct traffic when it gets congested on 95 in an efficient way so that it doesn't block local traffic. I know that's a problem in New Kent County, Ms. Page talks about. Trying to somehow use technology to not let local traffic and public safety be basically shut down when 95 shut down. I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's an answer out there, and technology hopefully can provide it. Thank you.
So I think for those of you, I'm Andreas in Richmond, Virginia. One of the things I think is important for us to innovate and connect is we're dealing with a lot of issues with housing affordability, rising price of cars, fuel. And when you put those all together and put that into a workforce capacity of our residents, I think we need to really look at understanding the connectivity across not just transit for employment, for school, for children going to sporting events and things after school, et cetera. We have to think now too around how they all connect. And I know that I'm working with the administration on supporting Richmond being a 15-minute city. I think that should expand to the region and as a goal, because that means connectivity across all modes of transportation. walking from your front door to your car or your bus, or you're riding your bike, et cetera. But more importantly, how they all interact to make sure we are having equitable access. I want to see us look at how we connect to making sure that those modes are as affordable as possible, given that the rising costs of everything else is going up. And so that connects with housing. How are we going to connect transit-oriented development around these investments to support good, affordable housing access for our working class individuals? I think when we talk about affordable housing, there sometimes can be a stigma, but a lot of times it's really 50% is our frontline employees. It's a lot of people we depend on for teachers, firefighters, police officers, et cetera. And so as we see that the past 5 years, that increase, the area median income has increased by $5,000+. That's a big burden that's hitting all families. So I think we need to look at how we can connect these things together, housing, transportation. But I also think we should look at how we can connect economic development around this as well, and potentially support, I think, fare free continuing for the long term as it relates to economic activity. I think if we separate it out as its own thing of transit and ridership, et cetera, I think we've seen through the pandemic, ridership on GRTC increased significantly when a lot of other localities across the country decreased. I think that's a testament to its dependability and its need. More importantly, it was free for most of that. And so I think that shows that there's data around what's needed for that capacity. I know there's a dollar signs along with that. And that's why I think connecting housing, investment for transit, investment for infrastructure, and attracting investment around that is how we can support that for the future. So how do we innovatively connect those together is what I think the challenge before us is. Localities is important.
Well, thank you. Last, we wanted to talk a little bit about how to be more competitive. That also was a theme that I heard earlier this morning. We think that there's a big opportunity for us to become more competitive in the funding space. So unprecedented investment from the federal government right now into communities. Some of those opportunities are direct allocations to your localities. Others are competitive grants. We think that PlanRVA needs to get more involved in that space. We've historically not been super engaged, quite frankly, in a lot of the more competitive grant applications, the national competitions, and we think we need to start doing that again. This region is becoming known as an innovative region, and we stand more than a fighting chance to be able to receive our not only fair share, but more than that, to be able to bring back to this region. Over the last 5 years, thanks to our team members, we've been able to double the amount of grant funding that we receive as an agency and distribute back out into the community. So we're administering more and more grants now that are not operating our organization, but actually being passed through to be able to support initiatives that are designed and developed and ideated by local government staff members. So really proud of that. And we think that there's a big opportunity to continue with that. So federal infrastructure packages, those investment opportunities, I think, are things that we're watching closely. And we want to continue to see how we could leverage our state and local dollars to be able to go after those bigger federal awards. You've heard a lot already this morning about the intentionality behind the formation of the Central Virginia Transportation Authority and how we can more efficiently leverage smart scale grants to be able to move our transportation projects up on the list of getting done rather than just a to-do. And we're going to continue to be mindful of that, but certainly are open to other opportunities that you all think that we should be focused on in the way of being more competitive as a region.
Well said. I think the other thing to note is that, as we all know, there's a huge opportunity at the federal level with the bipartisan infrastructure law to put a lot of, to inject a lot of funding into local communities just like ours. So Martha mentioned competing at the national level. We certainly have our eyes set on those funding opportunities. We're expecting a lot of those to roll out over the summer, thinking about projects like the Reconnecting Jackson Ward that the city is looking at, working with others in the region to think about other unique and innovative ways to apply federal dollars that are readily available to specific local needs. So we're really excited about the next 6 to 12 months and figuring out where all that's going to go.
Thanks. If I may, I think due to time, we're going to kind of try to keep this going forward. Chet's got a presentation, and this is something that I think is valuable. This is an opportunity that we've never really had before, to have this broad of an audience participate in the discussion about our upcoming work program for transportation. That being said, we do need to make sure that those of you that are on the TPO policy board stay where you are because we do need to take one action at the end of the presentation.
Yes, thank you. Do we have a quorum?
We do.
Okay, we have a quorum. It would not be a regional body without one business item. So I am just going to take a few minutes because of our schedules, our annual schedules. This work plan has to be adopted today before our new fiscal year starts. So we are excited about the opportunity. I'm going to ask my handy assistant to advance to the next slide. All right, so this is a work program that addresses federal and state planning and programming requirements. There are lots of conditions that are set forth in federal statute that allow us to remain eligible for those funds that we've been talking about, being able to leverage additional dollars. So this is the purpose of the work program. It's an annual document that provides the guidance for the TPO to operate through the year. Next slide. We have 4 program areas that we've focused on in the idea of public transparency. Over the last 2 years, we have condensed this work program from about 175 pages to 30, so that it is somewhat more readable if anyone from the public is interested in looking at it. Our 4 main areas are very simple: program support and administration, a lot of the work that staff does to support our many boards and committees. General development and comprehensive planning. This covers public engagement, all of our new equity focus areas, and any special planning studies that come up as a result of regional communication. And then we have long range planning, which is basically our long range transportation plan every 5 years. The scenario planning project I mentioned will be under this category, and other types of long range transit planning, resilience work that we're doing now to address vulnerability in our transportation infrastructure. And then finally, short range transportation planning, otherwise known as the ability to allocate funds to member jurisdictions so that projects can be built. So looking at leveraging all of our grant resources, making sure that federal dollars flow as they should, working with the CVTA on the different avenues for funds to get into place, and keeping those programs moving. Next slide. The next few slides are kind of just a summary of our 23 priorities, our FY 23 priorities. The first is scenario planning. I mentioned that earlier, and we're excited about the opportunity there. The next is transportation investments that capitalize on workforce mobility and accessibility. One of our performance, a suite of our performance measures to analyze projects for our long range transportation plan from CBTA and others is focused on accessibility. One accessibility measure for the entire region. The other is for our equity emphasis areas, which we've identified using census data that identifies more vulnerable populations and how they can best utilize the network for accessing their destinations. Expanding access to transit, working with GRTC, our regional partners on microtransit, as well as fixed network transit to move that into the next decade. Next slide. Identifying strategies for continuing to use performance measures. I mentioned that most of our decision making is now based on that cost benefit analysis, putting data behind how projects are ranked so that elected officials have the best information in front of you. We want to keep continuing that process throughout all our other programs. The next few slides are recommended planning emphasis areas from our partners in federal highways and federal transit. The first is expanding data management and sharing capabilities. Martha hit on that earlier. It's kind of our bread and butter in terms of making data available to the community. We want to make that a more transparent process, improve our web accessibility so that data is immediately accessible to anybody in the community that wants to see it. Next slide. Improving consideration of equity and justice in public granting processes. As I mentioned, many of the performance measures we've identified to help prioritize projects include new equity and environmental justice tools. This is part of what we were talking about when we presented at the ANPO conference, the National Association of MPOs, in May. And we are leading the charge in this area. There's a lot of the MPOs that I had a chance to speak with wanted to learn more. So our staff is small but mighty, but we're pushing the boundaries and really bringing this to the forefront across the country. So we're really excited about doing that and continuing to improve those efforts. Tackling the climate crisis. We're building up our staff capacity now. We have a great core led by Sarah Stewart, but we are now able to focus more on climate change impacts, the scenario planning. We'll incorporate some of these factors. What are the most vulnerable components of our transportation network to many different factors, whether that's sea level rise or consistent storms, low-lying areas where culverts might be blocked. I mean, it could be as simple as that up to way more complex modeling, but we're excited about improving our efforts in those areas. Next slide. Safe streets. Again, the focus on safety, that's kind of been a recurring theme. The secretary mentioned it earlier. One of our focus areas is now to improve our ability to predict where safety may be an issue and put resources behind ways to alleviate those problems before they actually start. And public engagement is the next one, continuing to refine the work that we put into place for many of our efforts to provide better opportunity for the public to be engaged. This is one of the recurring themes that we've talked about at the TPO over the last 6 to 9 months is how do people know more about who we are and what we do and the work that is being done on behalf of the entire region. So again, continuing to focus on improving those opportunities for everybody. Next slide. I think this is the last one, planning and environmental linkages. This is really, even though it's very engineering focused, it's really exciting thinking about the opportunities the CVTA has put in front of us. This is really about streamlining efforts to make sure that when we're ready to go to project implementation, when we're ready to build the fall line, when we're ready to widen I-64, all of those steps and procedures that need to take place can be encompassed in the process that takes place between the TPO and the CVTA. Being able to take the concept from an idea in someone's head to a competitive plan, to a recommended alternative, to finally committing those dollars to making it work. This puts in place all the steps between the idea and the commitment and construction to make sure that things like NEPA and environmental reviews and all of those things that normally take years and years before you can actually start turning dirt, we can put that in the process and make sure it moves forward. So next slide. If you want to see a split of how all these things take place, 49% of the funding for the TPO is put into the long-range planning category. 29% is focused on equity outreach and comprehensive planning. 15% is into the short-range planning, focusing on getting those funds where they need to go. And then finally, 7% is to administration, board support, committee guidance, those kinds of things. Last slide. The action requested today from the TPO is approval and adoption of the FY23 Unified Planning Work Program. Mr. Chair.
Any questions from Mr. Parsons related to his presentation or the action we're getting ready to take here this morning? If there's not any.
Mr. Chair, I move we adopt the Unified Planning Work Program as presented.
We have a motion from John, Richmond County, for adoption of the Unified Work Program. Do I have a second?
Second.
John Hodges from Ashland is a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Atkins,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Do virtually, I'm not sure if we'll be able to
Aye.
hear his response.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll, could you indicate, thank you, he has indicated that he votes in favor of that motion. Mr. Holland?
Aye.
Mr. Winslow?
Aye.
Mr. Lumpkins?
Aye.
We have, I believe, our Hanover representatives are no longer with us.
I don't know if I'm an alternate, but I'm citizen commissioner on PlanRVA. Does that count?
Hey, no, I was looking for Mr. Davis and Mr. Peterson. Thank you, Mr. Waddell.
Good try. Good try.
Ms. O'Bannon.
Got something else for us?
Ms. O'Bannon has left as well. Mr. Thornton?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller? I wasn't sure if we had Mr. Tiller. Chair Williams?
All right.
Ms. Carmack? Aye. Thank you. Mr. Addison?
Aye.
Dr. Newbill?
Aye.
Do we have Ms. Adams? Thank you. Ms. Dean? Mr. Mann?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes the roll call for that item and the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we have member comments. Any comments from a membership at this point? I know there's been a lot of conversation this morning.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Yes, Ms. Page.
I'm quite sure everybody can hear me. Anyway, I really want to thank not only you as Chair TPO, but also Ms. Winslow and Mr. Thornton. This meeting today became a product of a vision through, I don't want to say the temperament of Chair Williams, but anyway, he charged, he asked, no, he told Dr. Newbill that we needed a committee to get together for a conference. That is true. Okay, and so today is a product of your efforts, sir, and you're telling Dr. Newbill what you want, what you would like. And so I think of all of the recognition that was given today. What an awesome meeting, what an awesome opportunity to see what each individual organization is doing, because we are all working together for one common goal. So we thank you for today, but I would be remiss if I did not thank the chairperson that you told to get this absolute important meeting today together. And so working always in the spirit of excellence and in the spirit of vision, I think that we should, I would ask that you would join me as we would recognize and show our appreciation to Dr. Cynthia Newbill from the city of Richmond.
Thank you, Ms. Page, but there were other persons who were told by our chair. And so I want to make sure that all of the committee members were recognized. If you could just raise your hands, everybody who served on the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Page, and thank you, Dr. Newbill. Any other member comments? You've heard me say it before, there's a lot of talent in this room. There's a lot of talent sitting around the board tables at the various organizations, and you're seeing it pay off today. So once again, thank you for what you do. Our next meetings, the Rrtpo will be meeting on the 7th of July. CVTA will be meeting on the 15th of July. PlanRVA will be meeting on 7/14. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.